Chair now recognizes Mr. Langworthy from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Califf, my constituents, many of whom don't have the same access to a doctor's office as my colleagues in urban or sprawling suburban areas often do, they're the ones most impacted by the FDA's inaction and lack of clarity on prescription to over-the-counter, or in other words, RX to OTC switch. What this can often result in is a lack of expanded over-the-counter access for medicines that have already gone through an approval process at the FDA and deserve serious and timely consideration so that constituents, our taxpayers, can have more easy access to the care and to the help that they need. Commissioner Califf, can you explain why we only see a small percentage of the prescription to over-the-counter switch annually, and what can we do to increase that number?
Sure, appreciate that, and also appreciate the importance to rural people, especially of having access to medications. I mean, what the regulations require is that the company that wants to make that switch has to produce the evidence that if they go to over-the-counter, that the person purchasing the product can understand the instructions and use it appropriately, and therefore doesn't need an intermediary to do the prescribing and the interaction with a person as a patient. So I would say whenever a manufacturer produces that evidence, you know, we're anxious to get it and to take action if they've got the data to support what they want to do. So it's really a matter, they actually can't just make the switch because they have to show that a consumer can actually understand the instructions and apply the medication appropriately.
Unfortunately, what we're hearing, Dr. Califf, is that for too long the switch process has been muddled by, you know, moving goalposts, challenges, engaging in a dialogue with the FDA, and a culture at the FDA that seems to reward denying reviews and approvals rather than trying to get things done. But I have limited time, so I'd like to move on. Essentially, pharmaceutical companies are disclosing their inventions to the FDA years before disclosing them to the Patent Office, which can elongate commercial monopolies inappropriately by 10 years. Due to inconsistent filing with both the FDA and the Patent and Trademark Office by branded companies, many of the most expensive drugs on the market are artificially blocked from generic competition. Now, this leads to billions of dollars in lost savings to patients and to taxpayers. President Biden released a pharmaceutical competition executive order that encouraged the FDA and the Patent Trade Office to collaborate on this issue, and FDA has also conducted listening sessions where the issue was apparently discussed extensively. However, there seems to be no recent progress on this front. So what real solutions is FDA, in fact, considering to address this problem, and when can we expect to receive an update?
Well, we'd be happy to give your staff an update any day. I disagree with the view there's no progress being made. There's a very active collaboration with the Patent Office in an effort to reduce the number of inappropriate patents that get in there and block the generic competition. So we can give you an update on what's happened with that. We had a long discussion about this earlier this afternoon, but let me just say that the Patent Office has the primary responsibility for determining if there's something unique that merits a patent. That's not an FDA call. You're correct that we see the pipeline of what's coming from pharma. That's commercial confidential information that by law we can't release to anyone else. But what we want to do is make sure that there's good communication so the Patent Office understands when it's actually a valid new patent that would extend that protection from competition.
Okay, thanks. In my remaining time, I really want to switch gears here. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, numerous studies have linked a range of health issues with the consumption of plant-based beverages by children. Furthermore, there is considerable confusion and misinformation about the substitution of non-dairy products for cow's milk. The FDA itself determined that based on 13,000 public comments, quote, consumers do not understand the nutritional differences between milk and plant-based milk alternatives. So, Commissioner, can you comment on the FDA's efforts to enforce dairy product standards of identity, particularly the use of the term milk, and the actions your agency is taking to mitigate the risks posed by the chronic mislabeling of non-dairy products using established dairy terms.
Well, I'm glad you referred to the nutritional content because that is the primary deficit here, and we are requiring that nutritional information be prominently displayed as part of the effort. What we're not doing is specifying exactly what can be called milk because this is, how do I say it, the cow's out of the barn already. It's been decades that terminology has been used, and whenever those kinds of issues, when we make a rule to require it be called something when it's been different, we've lost those cases in court. But what I think is really important is when people purchase something, they actually understand the nutritional content, and that is heavily emphasized in what we're currently putting forth.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you answering my questions. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.